We are live back again with Wednesday night. Every single week, we run it down here on the live. Ask Me Anything on Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Get into all the things to do with all the things you guys want to know about: how to mitigate taxes, set yourself up for success, how to make money in crypto, the professional services that exist today, what the banks are going to do, what the institutions are going to do, how this technology is going to affect you and your life. We run it all down here. And if you have any questions about any of that, that's what we like to answer. Muhammad, you're going to get to know all about what I expect for XRP. So we're going to start this one off. I've got a couple topics that I want to talk to you guys about that are just kind of top of mind for me. So one of those is, I get asked lots and lots of times, and we'll go over this. We touch on pieces of it almost every single week, but I just want to run down the domino theory at a high level for people that may have not heard it before. So I put this out back in a little more than a year ago in March of 2024. And I've made some changes to it. There's some other conditions and things that I think are going to play out. A lot of time has passed since then. So this is going to be like a protracted, updated version of the domino theory for you guys. And then we'll get into infinite banking a little bit before we run it down in the questions tonight. So what is the domino theory for XRP that causes it to get to 4 digits? Muhammad, this is for you. So right now we're seeing the US and Japan hold interest rates steady. And that is because the reverse carry trade, when it unwinds, will cause chaos in markets. There will be a global credit call when it happens. So for those that don't know what the reverse carry trade is, in Japan, they have held interest rates very low for the last 20 plus years. At some points, even negative. So they would pay you to borrow money. What a crazy concept, but that's the world that we live in. So under those circumstances, you've had pension funds, banks, institutions, enterprises, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, and the like, all go to Japan and borrow a bunch of yen. Because why wouldn't you? It's free money. And they would take that, convert it to dollars, and then they would go put it to work in other markets to be able to generate returns. So basically, you just unlimited leverage, borrow as much as you can over there, pay some fees, convert it to dollars, pay some fees, invest it. And now we've seen what can happen when there is an aggressive rate hike by the Bank of Japan. We saw this last year in August. And I thought things were going to unwind then, but they kicked the can a little bit further here. So, which they're great at. They keep kicking the can. But at some point, there's going to be, the musical chairs is going to stop. So last year in August, I think it was the 4th or 5th of August, we saw 13% down in the S&P 500 in one day. And what that was the reverse carry trade. The Nikkei had sold off the night before, so that's a tell. That is the major stock market index there in Japan. And it had sold off, limit down multiple times over the previous evening. And, futures in the U.S. market were down substantially the next day. The Bank of Japan then came out and stated that they would not raise interest rates as long as there was market volatility anymore. And that kind of quelled things and allowed things to simmer out, right? They've held rates since then. The U.S. has held rates since then. And so we've just been in this holding pattern. And we have other circumstances that could cause the Bank of Japan to be forced to raise interest rates. So anytime the yen appreciates against the dollar more than like 140 yen per $1, that's the danger zone. That's where the Bank of Japan starts printing money and buying treasuries to drive down the yield there, which is what they're doing right now. And so it's going to happen, though. And I think the catalyst that's going to be what pushes Japan over the edge is oil. We've seen oil drop to the lowest trading point almost since 2020 when it plummeted below negative. It went negative $35. And then obviously rose back since then. And now we're back down to $56, $55 on WTI crude. I think there's going to be some type of catalyst in the Middle East. the Strait of Hormuz, if it were to get shut down, that'd be 1/3 of the world's oil supply immediately off the market. And that could cause pandemonium for Japan. Their interest rates, or not their interest rates, their interest rates would rise. They would have to, in order to be able to offset the inflation and the cost of energy that would spike. And so in doing so, that's what I think will end up being the catalyst for the unwind or the reverse carry trade. We've got some conflict between Lebanon and Iran, or India right now, excuse me, in the Middle East. And I think that's what's going to be the catalyst here. I could be wrong. They could kick the can. It could go further. But May, June seems like a very interesting time for this all to play out. You have the ETFs potentially going live for XRP. You've got the futures market going live on the 19th of May here. And so let's say it happens. There's a spike in oil, drives energy costs up there in Japan. They have to aggressively raise interest rates. The reverse carry trade unwinds. You would see a ridiculous amount of U.S. Treasuries sold off in order to swap back to dollars, to then swap back to yen and repay those loans. And that would flood the market with, foreign debt for the U.S. The only recourse that the U.S. will have at that point, the Fed can't print money here. I know a lot of people are hopeful for QE. It's not going to happen. I know I'm hopeful for lowering interest rates. As soon as Japan raises interest rates, they can lower because then they caused it, not us, type deal. But I think we will see that at some point, probably here in 2025. They will lower interest rates, maybe 25, 50 basis points. I don't know that it gets any lower than that. But that will cause, some help for the markets, some liquidity to be available. People will be able to refinance things. But it will cause huge downward pressure across all markets. It won't just be the stock market. It will be gold. It will be crypto. It will be everything. The everything crash will happen. Because all of that liquidity will be sucked back up, swapped back to dollars to repay those loans in Japan. Tens of trillions of dollars have been borrowed from the Bank of Japan over the last 20 years and then put to work in other markets. So once they pass the stablecoin bill to be able to stabilize the treasury market for the U.S., which is the backbone of the financial system, it's tier one collateral. They can't let that burn, which, they'll save it. But they will pass stablecoin regs to do it, which are queued up right now. So that's the other piece that's already in place, ready to go. I don't know what they're waiting on, but they're waiting on oil, I think. So once they pass that, in that legislation, it gives clarity to a few tokens, XRP and XLM, as bridge currencies. So they will have legal clarity here in the U.S., alongside all of the other stablecoins that will get launched to eat up those treasuries. So you'll see Google, Amazon, BlackRock, Apple, McDonald's, all the large banks, Goldman, Citi, Bank of America, will launch a stablecoin, and they will buy up that foreign debt that floods onto the market in order to be able to back those stablecoins. You've seen Buffett's got a stockpile of $355 billion sitting on the sideline. He could very easily issue his own stablecoin and be a liquidity provider and put that into pools and earn returns with that higher than the interest rate he's getting right now on treasuries. Old Uncle Warren, he's stepping down. You're also seeing a changing of a guard there, which is pretty interesting. We saw the Pope pass away. We've seen the Queen pass away. A lot of these powers that have been for extended periods of time are transitioning. I just want to address one thing over here before I move on. This Lori Reports account, please block her. Anybody that messages you and talks about the QFS account or registering your assets there, that's a scam. Please block and report. So aside from that, you're going to have huge downward pressure on the markets. And with stablecoin regulation here in the US, that gives the power to the Treasury and other people to go after Tether, which is now moved offshore, and obviously at this point is not going to become compliant and is a US dollar denominated stablecoin. So if it doesn't meet the regulations, they will have the right to sanction it, which will cause huge ramifications for crypto and Bitcoin in particular, in my personal opinion. So all the exchanges that have not delisted Tether up to that point will become illiquid very quickly. It is the most liquid stablecoin by far. If you're going to be executing large trades, you do it in Tether. And so I don't know if you guys have ever seen the volume on Tether versus USDC or any of the other ones, but if you try to execute a 6-figure, 7-figure trade on anything else besides Tether and whatever other token, the slippage and the loss that you get are significant. You're not going to be able to execute that trade in full. There's not enough liquidity. The depth of the order book is not there for it. So this person's asked, why is Bitcoin so high? Tether is propping it up. Every time they print Tether, there's almost always a direct correlation to the increase of Bitcoin's price. It is the liquidity in the backbone for Bitcoin, and part of how they've driven it to this price, along with the ETFs. So they've dumped liquidity into it. Once that liquidity is frozen and no longer there, you're going to see Bitcoin plummet. You're also going to have huge downward pressure from the reverse carry trade unwinding in crypto. Also, a lot of that money has been put to work in Bitcoin as well. We've never seen that type of market action on the ETF since it's gone live January of 24. I think it was January 10th of 2024 that the ETF, spot ETFs went live for Bitcoin. And since then, you've seen, fairly neutral market action. We've seen some aggressive increases in price, but not, we haven't seen 30, 40, 50% down in the market in one day, which is usual during a bull market for crypto. So, excuse me. With that, all of these investment banks that do have spot ETFs are going to have huge unrealized losses. Huge. So with that, they're going to need some way to de-risk. The only real option for them at that point, because they won't be able to pull from traditional positions, is to be able to settle real time between the clearinghouses and the brokers, just like Bitcoin does, which is not real time. It's like 45 minutes to settle your Bitcoin, but who's counting, right? Much faster than the stock market, which is T+1. So the only way that they'd be able to do that would be to launch the ETFs for XRP, and the exchanges would also need XRP, very similar to the Shane Ellis theory. They need to drive the price significantly higher to be able to provide liquidity in the transactions so they don't go bankrupt. And Bitfinex is poised to do that. That is, the one that Shane Ellis talked about in the theory where XRP goes to 589. I know everybody knows that number. So when all of this demand happens at the exact same time, the perfect storm exists, and you have a way to drive liquidity into XRP all at once, because the futures are live and the spot ETFs get approved and the Ripple case is finally settled, that's when this thing's going to rocket. And I don't know if, markets are going to be shut down or you won't even be able to see it going on. I think there's going to be chaos and pandemonium. I think that most people will be very scared in that moment. But the people that are invested in specific digital assets, I think, are going to have a lot of clarity and be sitting back smiling because they know what's going to happen on the other side. So you would need a 4-digit XRP in order to be able to settle, those transactions on the back end of the stock market, 500 to 600 billion per day, using Project Ion, which would clear between the clearinghouses and the brokers real time. And you had the DTCC move to T+1 last year on May 28th. So almost a year ago, we've got 21 days until it's been 1 year since they allowed the option to settle through a digital asset on the backside of the stock market. So that's what I think is going to play out here in 2025. I think that the people that are positioned, and I have to say this because I am not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please consult with your financial advisor before making any investment decisions. If you don't have a financial advisor that can consult on crypto, I would encourage you to go to digitalwealthpartners.net, which is our corporation, which actually employs financial advisors that have their 65 and can advise you on which digital assets to purchase and can provide you all the resources to do so. And we have other ways to be able to borrow against your digital assets along with generate returns on them. So if you're interested in that, would love to work with you there. And so that kind of brings me to the next topic here before we jump into the super chats and everything else over here on YouTube. Infinite banking. If you haven't done much research on this, I would encourage you to do so. Most of the time, this happens with cash value life insurance policies. And what you would do is you would fund that life insurance policy, the cash value of that can then grow tax-free. You have to fund it a specific way if you're doing large amounts. You don't want to create a MEC or a modified endowment contract. It needs to be done to the limit of what the policy can handle over an extended period of time. Most of the time, you can get 2/5 or 2/6, 1/3 of the policy funded in the first 90 days. You can backdate 1 year, and then you can fund the next year. And these are write-offs if it's done for key employees of an LLC, which is one of the reasons we recommend that people set up an LLC for their digital assets. So once you do that, you fund that. It's invested in the stock market or crypto or whatever other assets you would like that are available inside that insurance policy. There's marketplaces where you can pick from different funds. There's certain diversification and risk standards that are required inside that, but it trades tax-free. So if you are able to meet those standards, the minimum to join for Digital Wealth Partners is 100,000 XRP or at least $500,000 invested in digital assets. If you do want to become a client of Digital Wealth Partners. So just knowing that you need an LLC set up, and you do need at least $500,000 in digital assets or at least 100,000 XRP to become a client over there. So once you have that cash value in there, though, the banks will lend against that policy. So your assets continue to grow tax-free inside that insurance policy. And you borrow against the cash value and fund your lifestyle. And you can take out reinsurance to cover the debt on that insurance policy so that the cash value or the assets that are inside that policy then flow back to your trust upon your passing. This is what the Rockefellers and all of the large family offices do. So if you want to play those games, you can do that with digital assets. Very similar to a tech startup founder, let's say Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Bezos even for Amazon. These people are billionaires. They're not liquid billionaires, though. Their whole net worth is wrapped up in the stock that they own in these corporations. So they don't pay taxes on those capital gains unless they sell the stock, which Bezos and Elon and Zuckerberg have been doing, right? So they are going to owe those taxes. However, the majority of the time, they're going to borrow against their stock holdings. Debt is not income. So there may be an interest rate associated with that, but it's going to be significantly less than what you would pay if you liquidated the stock and had 40% or 50% taxes if you live in California. So just one other mechanism, and you can refinance it. So let's say your stock or your XRP, you borrow against it now. We have ways to do that. The interest rates are a little bit higher. Most of the time, 15 to 17%. We're looking at 45 to 60% LTV or loan to value ratio. And let's say you had a couple $1 million in XRP. You borrow $1 million against it at 15%. You put that to work somewhere that can generate that type of return to be able to service the debt. Or you buy more XRP with it, which we've seen many people do. Not advising that, but some people may have made that choice. And then you are able to, as long as you're servicing the debt, it's interest only with a balloon payment at the end. And you could get down to the end of that and refinance it and roll the collateral on another loan. And hopefully the asset has appreciated substantially since then, since you originally took out the loan. And they're able to underwrite the asset at a much lower risk, which would reduce the interest rate. So very similar to, like, let's say you started your real estate portfolio in the 80s when it was not fun to be in real estate. But the interest rates in the 80s were very high, right? So if you were financing properties at 15 to 17% and you had enough, rent coming in from the properties to be able to service those leases or those, not the leases, but the mortgages that you took out on those properties. And over time, you could refinance them down and raise the rates or the rents on those properties while you had continual equity building up because those properties were appreciating over the last, 40 years. That's been a really, really great way to use debt to leverage it on assets to be able to build wealth over that period of time. And I think you're going to see the same thing done with digital assets, especially over the next couple decades as we continue to see them rise in price. and you have, unique ways to be able to put those to work, to be able to generate cash returns to service that debt. So again, that's something to work with our clients on at Digital Wealth Partners. That's something you guys are interested in. We would love to work with you on that side there. And speaking of which, we got glitching in the matrix. Just hop into the first question here. They say, will DWP's investment requirement for XRP ever go back to 50,000? 100,000 is a lot and unattainable for a man, reasonable for a family of 5. Hard to get there if you do have, responsibilities. A lot of people bought a lot at 30 cents. That would have been $30,000 at 30 cents to buy 100,000 XRP. And you had to have conviction back then. There was not a whole lot of certainty in the market that it was going to see itself through the lawsuit, that things were going to have a rebound and it was going to appreciate. Now that it's at $2, a lot of the naysayers are coming back around. And it's also 6 times higher, 7 times more expensive than it was at 30 cents. So yeah, it's very difficult to accumulate that now. But we do have a lot of clients that, have been here for years and been dollar cost averaging over the last 3 to 5 years, stacking that bag, making sure that they did have enough. Not to say that we won't ever go back to 50,000. We've run that special 3 times and allowed people to get in over the last 6 months here. We might do one more time. It just depends on the price appreciation for XRP. So if we do see, price move at a $10 XRP, it's likely that we will move the minimum to $1 million, which would still require 100,000 XRP. So at that point, we might run, a deal for $500,000, like we have the minimum today, for a period of time to allow people that have 50,000 to get in while the getting's good. So I'm not ever going to say never. It's not something that's immediately on the roadmap here, unless, like I said, we did see a pretty significant run in XRP, and then we might keep the minimum at $500,000 for at least a little while to allow people to participate that want to do so. Let's see here. We've got Friends and Me. They say, hey, Jake, I just got done watching the interview with you and Max Avery. It was fire. Appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words. My question is, if you could recommend a video of yours back from in the day, which one would it be? Thanks again. Oh, man. Which video from back in the day? I mean, I've been making these videos. I started on Facebook in 2020, just talking about, self-improvement, digital assets, and a lot of the stuff that I still continue to discuss today. Obviously, this is a bit more focused on that vertical versus some of the other stuff I used to discuss and still, know a lot about, but most people are here for this stuff. So that's what we talk about. If I could go back and watch my first Facebook video, I know this would, you're probably asking for yourself, what would provide you the most value. And I'll get to that in a second, but I wish I could go back and watch the first Facebook live video that I did. I'm sure it was horrible. I know it was horrible. I don't know if you've ever when I first got on film, and watched myself on videos, I hated my voice. And I don't know if you guys are that way or not, but you hear yourself one way in your head and then you hear yourself on camera and you're like, that's not what I sound like. So anyway, I'd like to watch that one. But for you, what I think would give you the most value, there's one that's actually tagged to the channel. It's like the 10 things that you should do when you get crypto rich. I think that one's probably one of my favorites. It's a little more than a year old, but it has a lot of really good tips on things that you should look at on the other side of price appreciation to be able to mitigate risk of loss. Call your CPA, call your attorney, then call your wife. I don't know if it's in that order or not, but those are the 3 people that I would contact if you do, hit it big. Keep it to yourself. Something else I've mentioned lots of times in other videos that I think would probably be relevant for people, because I don't think that price appreciation is too far in the future. You're going to get approached by a lot of people on the other side of price appreciation. I'm sure that you've told people, about XRP and that you got some. what I would do when that happens is I would actually put a board of people around yourself that could help you approve decisions. And then that way, when people come to you and ask you for money, a loan, an investment, whatever it is, my wife, then you can state, look, I would love to make the investment or the loan to you. I just have to take it by my committee and make sure that it's within the scope of what we're looking to do and how we're managing the capital. I have a financial committee and they help me make my decisions. And then you say, send us the terms, send us the use of the funds, send us the deck and the financials, the projections that you have with your corporation. And I'll get with them and we'll do due diligence. And if it's something that makes sense, we'll make the investment or the loan. And I can guarantee you that 95% of the time, that's going to be the end of that conversation. And there may still be some animosity from that other person. They might be like, you did me dirty. You should take care of me. They may have some expectations of you. And maybe you do want to take care of people in your family. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing. I'm just saying that that's been a downfall of a lot of athletes and other people that have come into wealth very quickly, is that they have, I don't want to say blown money, invested their money in the wrong places very quickly. And because of that are bankrupt within 3 to 5 years of coming into the money, because they haven't, figured out the skill of managing it. So if you surround yourself with the right people and make sure you do have a financial committee that is able to vet these decisions. And like I said, most people aren't even going to give you anything. They're just going to, get mad and walk away, and then they'll get over it because you have a system and a standard on how you operate. So I think that that's a really valuable tool. And that if, when you do come into a lot of money, it's something that you should implement. Big Secrets asked, if I was to exit DWP Anchorage, what's the fee? I know Kraken is 2.5%. Like take your funds off of the platform. I don't believe that there's any fee. There may be like a basis point or two that they take. Very low. It's not anything meaningful. But we do charge an AUM fee, just so people are aware. So like other money managers, and I wish we didn't have to do this, but unfortunately I do have overhead and payroll and other costs of operating the business for compliance and all the red tape I've got to deal with to do this the right way. So anything under 5 million, we charge 2% on the AUM. 5 million to 10 million drops to 50 basis points. So that's 0.5% of whatever we're managing. And then if you're over 10 million, we drop it to 40 basis points, or 40% of 1%. So if you had $10 million with us, it's only $40,000 for the year. For the institutional custody, the advisory, all of the services and offerings that we have, the insurance on your assets, the ability to add signers and beneficiaries to your account, institutional grade custody, just a lot of benefits in working with us. And I do, personally, I think that the rates are very fair. There are going to be other people that charge way more than we do. But I've tried to put it in a position, if I am a client, I would want to work with us. Right. So, thank you for the question, friends and me. And hopefully, I probably wasn't the answer you're looking for, but, it's the answer I got. Rob, what's going on, Rob? He says, Jake, have you heard any update on the increased offer to buy Circle? I did. I am not under NDA on this. I don't know that the individual that shared it with me would want me to share it publicly, but I'm going to. Well, maybe I'll skirt it, but you'll know what I mean. You may be familiar with antitrust laws here in the U.S. So these were passed back in the 1920s or 30s. U.S. Steel and Standard Oil were broken up, right, because they were monopolies. I think if Ripple were to acquire Circle and Tether cannot be here in the U.S. market, they would then be the monopoly for stablecoins and all of the products, banking services, and payments, and all of that infrastructure. So it's possible that Circle didn't even turn down that offer, and maybe a certain regulatory authority stated that is not okay for that acquisition to take place. I don't know that, but that's just my guess. We'll see if they actually end up making that acquisition. But yeah, I think that there might be some antitrust laws in place preventing that transaction from going through. Off the grid hero, what's up, man? He says, world closer to Cyberpunk or Ready Player One by 2050. Oh man. I mean, I'm gonna sound crazy, but I think we already live in a simulation. So probably Ready Player One if I was going to take between the two. Bob Seeger, it's an interesting name. He says, ways to minimize tax liability for moving digital assets that have already appreciated hundreds of percent into an LLC. Great question. As long as it's a single member LLC and you're the only one making the capital contribution, there is no step up in basis or tax implication for moving the assets in. Now, if you are contributing to a partnership, that's not the case. You will have tax implications. So be well aware that you need to set up a single member LLC when establishing an LLC for your digital assets and contributing those as the capital. There is no change in basis. There is no change in time frame, and there is no tax liability if it's a single member LLC. Now, if you're concerned about your spouse being on the LLC, most states have strong spousal rights. So they're going to get the assets in the LLC anyway, or the debts, whichever happens. But if you did want them to have visibility on things, you can absolutely make your spouse a manager of the LLC, and they can be a signer on the account. And we can build in governance, where it requires multiple signatures or multiple authorizations over certain amounts of money in order to move it, if that's some type of governance that you would like to put in place. So that is the way to move your assets into an entity or an LLC in particular with no tax implications. It would be to set up a single member LLC and use it as the capital contribution to start the business, which is exactly how we do it. If you want to work with us, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and you can put in the code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG LLC. And that's going to get you everything end to end, including the step-by-step process on how to do all this for $2,000 all in, along with the virtual office that you can use to maintain your anonymity when transacting and getting your mail. Steve, what's up, man? He says, Jake, thanks for your guidance. Absolutely, brother. I really enjoy being here and I appreciate you hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. With all the ETFs coming, have they already pre-purchased the XRP to be offered? And if so, did they buy from the escrow or OTC? Dark pools. All of the above, Steve. When we saw the announcement of the spot ETFs being filed last year, you started to see a rise in the price of XRP. And that was institutions stepping in and purchasing XRP OTC over the exchanges and in other methods, not out of the escrow, because Ripple can't sell XRP, right? They can't do that, not to other institutions until the lawsuit's over. So with that, that's why we've seen maintained price stability here around $2. Is they're actually also using what's called TWAP and VWAP. These are time-weighted averages and volume-weighted averages of purchasing over a period of time. So if you wanted to average into the market and you thought you needed to buy $200 million worth of XRP, you need 100 million tokens, okay? You would put that with somebody that can execute TWAP, and you would tell them over the next 2 months, over the next 3 months, I want to average into the market at the lowest prices possible. And as long as they beat that average over the period, they keep the excess and you get the best price. So that's how that works. And that's why there's sustained volume here at these prices, is they are continuing to buy to be able to back these spot ETFs. We've had more and more announcements. Franklin Templeton, I think we have 17 or 18 ETFs that have been announced, 7 or 8 spot ETFs. And we still haven't had the big players step in yet that also might be accumulating behind the scenes and waiting to file their S1 for their ETF, including BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, and many others that I think you'll see come in once we get the futures live from the CME after the 19th. So the answer is yes. In short, probably a bit more than you wanted there, Steve. And thank you for the super chat. Let's see here. We've got Group 1, Gavin. What's up, brother? He says, hey, legend. Love the event videos. Awesome, man. The magazine analogy. Tinfoil hat. Could there be a time when they flick the switch, everyone gets locked out, and those holding become new 1%? Get your rest. Love you. Appreciate you, man. It's no rest for the wicked, man. For anybody that's driving hard for something. We get 6-7 hours of sleep, which is enough. So it's not a flip of the switch moment. Like, I know it'll feel like that. Okay. It's going to feel like that. But the real deal is they're going to launch these ETFs. You're going to have a liquidity crisis across the world, liquidity crisis across exchanges. And with the demand and the limited supply that's available for XRP, you're going to see a spike in price and liquidity move into the asset in ways that people can't really fathom right now, especially those that think about market cap. Like, they're going to have a really hard time quantifying and understanding a market cap in the quadrillions, right? So yes is the answer, but not in the way that they just turn something on. There are actual events that have to transpire for this to happen. It's not just a magical pixie dust moment in time when somebody in the background flips a switch. We got Nick. Hey, bro. Love your work. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here. He says, I set up an LLC in New Zealand. I had my XRP held by the LLC. I couldn't participate in ETFs custody and the yield funds. I wonder why. New Zealand shouldn't be a problem to be able to work with you. Email us. How do I get you to contact me? I don't want to list my email publicly here. Reach out to me on Twitter. Post on something and I'll ping you. Just let me know that you commented here, and I'll message you back, and then that way we can circle up and figure it out for you, brother. Appreciate you. Let me know. We work with a lot of international people. Like 25% of our client base is international. So those that are in Canada, the UK, EU, Australia, South America, Japan, all over. We work with people as long as their assets are held in an entity. We can work with you at Digital Wealth Partners. Now, if you don't meet the accredited status in the US, it would be difficult and impossible, really, for us to allow you to participate in the funds that we currently have. Working on some other things, though, that may be other opportunities. We got Hunter. What's up, man? He says, I think Trump is scheduled to be in the Middle East next week. Also, I saw a post that the U.S. might work a deal with Japan to sell oil to Japan. What does that look like for the domino effect? Thank you. So I think oil, like I said, is going to play a big role in this. I think that you're going to see something happen again with oil that causes a price spike, and that's going to force the Bank of Japan to raise interest rates aggressively in order to mitigate the inflation across their economy, and that will be the tipping point for the reverse carry trade. So, yeah, glad that Trump's doing that work in the Middle East. I'd rather just turn everything on here, but you need oil prices to be, 30% higher than really what they are today. Right now, they're capping everything and turning everything off and sending everybody home in the oil field because they're like, well, it's more valuable in the ground. We'll just pump it later. DB Longmore says, what/who businesses are leveraging the value of XRP? Who is the borrower? Confused by your question. Are you asking about ODL or on-demand liquidity? It is banks that are using that and partnering with Ripple and Uphold to be able to borrow the XRP and then swap it for whatever fiat they want, put that to work for 7 days, and then pay it back with the interest. It is banks and institutions that are doing that. So Ripple is a lender of their XRP, leveraging Uphold to swap for the fiat. So I'm assuming that's what you're asking. He says, where is my ROI coming from? Again, I need a lot more context around this question. Is it the ROI on XRP? Is it ROI for the returns on the funds that we're providing? Just if you could be real thorough with your question, I'm happy to answer it. I just need context. We got Chad with the super chat. He says, hey, Jake, can you explain why there is so much XRP still remaining if banks, governments, and major financial institutions will need to use it in the future at $2? Why hasn't it all been bought up? There's only 500 million left on exchanges, Chad. There's 100 billion XRP. There's 500 million left on exchanges. Literally 0.5% is available for purchase. They have. Is the answer. They bought it all up. The people that need it already have a position. There's 1,700 NDAs with Ripple for pre-allocated contracts that they have, negotiated over the last couple, 15 years. The answer is they have already bought it all up. There's pre-negotiated contracts for governments, banks, institutions, enterprises, all these that you mentioned here. And what's being purchased now is for the ETFs, which is a new event. It's not right. Like there's going to be other demand that is the catalyst that drives the price to the level where these institutions can then offset their debt and then start leveraging XRP for settlement. But the people that need it have already made those purchases. In my opinion, just a guy. Steve, he says, will the SEC approve the ETFs before first official settling the Ripple case? I don't know. They absolutely could. I mean, it's obvious that they've already come to an agreement to settle. We've got the new SEC chair in, Paul. He could approve them at any time. XRP in and of itself is not a security here in the U.S. They might be waiting for stablecoin regulation. I think that's proposed and voted on tomorrow. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Sold on XRP for bonk. Did I do great? I don't know. I don't know when you sold it for bonk. You could have done really good, depending on when you bought bonk. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to settle before or after. I'm not really overly concerned about the Ripple case, and I'll explain why. If the price appreciation of XRP is correlated to the settlement of the case or the end of the case, it is a security of Ripple. It would, in fact, be a security of Ripple. And that's why every time you've seen any price appreciation on XRP, it's been tamped down off of news from the case, because it can't be correlated to news from the case. It can't be correlated to Ripple. Otherwise, it is a security of Ripple. You need aspects in utility and other supply-demand dynamics outside of Ripple and their use case for it to drive the price higher. So I do not think that the price appreciation of XRP will be correlated with the settlement of the Ripple case for those reasons. So most people don't think through that type of stuff, right? Like they think, well, obviously it would be correlated. Absolutely not. It cannot be correlated, because then it will in fact be a security of Ripple. So it needs to be driven by these ETFs or market dynamics or global macroeconomic events or the use on exchanges for settlement and liquidity purposes. Like it has to be something outside of what Ripple does or something that happens. And then that could cause the case to settle, right? Or the case could settle independently of the price appreciation for XRP in a reasonable time frame around it. But I think the price will happen before the case settles, and that's really the only way that it doesn't look like a security of Ripple. We got Cole again. What's up, brother? He says, is 10K XRP enough to retire 100 to 300K a year in Oklahoma or Texas? Don't need Lambos and yachts. Can the Moon Sheriff ride into the sunset of financial freedom and tend my flock of goats? Only the freshest goat milk for the XRP army. Man, gotta love the enthusiasm. It's great. Yeah, Texas and Oklahoma have, Arkansas also very low cost of living. If you get $300,000 a year in those states, you're probably doing pretty well. Texas, you probably need closer to 500,000 Honestly, if you live, closer to Dallas, I live further out, 300 grand here in my little town's doing pretty good. But yeah, I mean, 10,000 XRP, if it's at $1,000, you got $10 million. If you're putting that to work at 5 to 10% per year, that's $500,000 to $1 million a year in income. There is going to be a reshuffling of what the value of currencies are. The real ROI on XRP is going to be significant, and it could even be even more significant than I think people realize. If the value of these currencies were to then be backed by gold and reinstated, and you had real value of your currencies, and XRP was still $1,000, now we're talking. Now we're talking like, because the value of the dollar's been depreciated or inflated away like 97%, 98% of what it was in the early 1900s. Before 1913, when the Fed was formed and Jekyll Island and all this stuff, right? Like, you guys know the story. Hopefully you do. The Federal Reserve is not a federal entity. It is a separate corporation managed by the 6 largest banks in the US, and they have taken control of our currency supply and our monetary system. And they enrich themselves with our tax dollars. It does not go to the government. In the Constitution, our Treasury is supposed to be the one issuing the currency, and both the presidents that have attempted to do that, both Lincoln and Kennedy, happened to be assassinated when they wanted to do that. So, and we saw Trump almost get assassinated. Interesting. Anyway, went off on my tangent there, but yeah, you could definitely retire on that amount, especially if you got $10 million worth and the dollar's worth a lot more, and you were making, that much money. I think that would go a really long way if the dollar got a lot of its value back. And people would be really happy. Eggs would be like 30 cents or 10 cents again. They wouldn't be like $3 to $5 per dozen. So, and that goat's milk would go a long way. I'm sure people would be paying premium dollar for the goat milk. We got Parker. What's up, man? He says, "Hey, man, new to this XRP thing. Love it. Glad to have you here. You came just in time, I think. I'm just shy with an I and not with a Y, of 5,000 XRP and worked. Don't tell people how much you got, Parker. And you got your name listed on here. This is rule number 1. He said he's working his way toward 10,000. I'm used to Coinbase to get them. Now you're telling people where you're buying it too. Should I invest in a cold wallet? Absolutely. Thanks again. I've learned so much tuning in. Appreciate you being here. And I'm just ragging you. You're going through all the same stuff that everybody goes through when they come into this asset class. It's like drinking from a fire hose, man. There's just so many like best practices and things that you should be doing to mitigate risk of loss. And I appreciate your question, but don't tell people how much you got, and especially don't have your name on stuff where you're telling people how much you got. I would recommend Decent is what I like out of all the cold wallets. There's tons of them, right? The only one I would probably stay away from would be Ledger, just because of things that I know in the background. Trezor, Decent, EliPal, Arculus. There's a bunch of them. I would get you a separate laptop that you use only to access this, or a phone that you don't use anymore that's not connected to the internet and only deals with Wi-Fi. If you're going to download an app like Zaman or Tangem, and then I would set that up on that device. Here you go, Tangem over here on TikTok. Absolutely. Get you a Tangem card where you can't see the keys. But if you lose it, make sure you got a backup card. So I like Zaman and I like Decent for XRP. The reason I like Decent is it's a biometric to be able to execute a transaction. You can add a 25th seed phrase word to make it more secure. The width or the breadth of assets that are available on the Decent wallet are second to none. They have more than almost any other cold wallet. And the user interface is super easy, and I like the UI, right? So those are the reasons that I like the Decent wallet versus the other ones. Only buy from the manufacturer. I think we have a code, and just full transparency, we're an affiliate for this deal. I think I make like $5 if you buy it through my code. Like, not getting rich off this, but I want to provide people a good resource when they do ask these questions. So we are, affiliated with them. They do a really good job, and I wouldn't partner with somebody that I didn't think, like, I used it before they ever reached out and talked to me. Is the reason that we took them up on that. I think they're the only people that we have an affiliate agreement with. Yeah, there's not anybody else. So, well, I say that. Caleb and Brown, we did have an affiliate agreement with Caleb and Brown for a while. We do institutional custody now, and it's much more secure than what they provide. The fees for trading on our platform is much lower than theirs. If you have less than half a $1,000,000 in crypto, Caleb and Brown's a great solution. If you want to take the money over there, they do charge a little bit on the trade. It's like 3.5%, which is steep, but you do have a broker that you can call, and they will execute that trade for you. They do have best-in-class service. They are very secure because of the regulator there in Australia. Australia is the most financially stringent jurisdiction on the planet, even more so than New York. So for them to be able to operate in the capacity that they have been and for the duration that they are doing a lot of things right. So not talking smack about Caleb and Brown. If you have larger amounts, I think we have a better solution. But for people that are, investing less than $500,000 or have less than $1 million, less than $1 million, I think that they probably are potentially even the better solution. Let's see here. Hunter, what's up, man? He says, actually, we already read this one. Always kicks me up in the chat. We have been on about an hour. I'm about halfway down the chat here, so we are going to try to wrap it up here in the next 30 minutes or so. Jason, what's up, man? He says, hey, Jake, wondering about ticker. No idea what it is. Oh, 21 shares XRP ETF. Oh, it's an ETP. He says ETP. Is it the one listed in Europe? It's not 21 shares, though. 21 shares is domestic to the US, so it's got to be the ETF. He probably just mistyped here. Is this a spot ETF? It is. It is a spot ETF. Chart looks the same as the XRP token. Trying to get my wife bought in safer. Yeah. So the way that I would do that now, if you wanted exposure to XRP in regulated markets, there are two futures ETFs that have launched. One is Pro Shares. They have ultra short, and then I think short. Ultra is long XRP. So if you think the price is going to go up, probably a good one to own. The other one, the other ticker is XXRP, and it's a 2x leverage XRP ETF. You are going to have to talk to your broker and let them know that you're a sophisticated investor and that you're going to have to meet some qualifications and probably have to be a little bit higher net worth in order to get access to it. The first day, I think they saw like 50 million in inflows, so nothing crazy, but that has already had some pretty good price appreciation on that ticker. And I think, if we did see, a big move higher in XRP, that's going to be the winner for performance in the traditional market for exposure. The spot ETFs are not available yet, and they won't be, and they will all be at the same time. And likely that'll be after BlackRock throws their hat in the ring. And the SEC will approve BlackRock and all of the rest of them all at the same time. Not financial advice. I always have to say that. Wayne, what's up, man? He says, if Powell drops the interest rate soon, do you think that will trigger the Japan reverse carry trade? Yes, and that's why they're holding rates steady. That's why they did not drop them today. Is that what is holding him back from dropping it now, considering inflation is down and it's due? Yes. So literally what is stopping him? That's why they're not moving, and they've just paused and they've held here for the duration that they have. Because if they move anymore, either direction, if Japan comes up, if we come down, bad news bears for the reverse carry trade. Thank you for the super chat, Wayne. We got Honest Aim. What's going on, brother? He says, Jake, blessings for you, for all you do for us. Thank you, man, in the mastermind. Trump has to find a way to refinance Janet Yellen's $7 billion debt later this year. This is a problem with high interest rates, or is it? Thanks, Jake. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. You would want lower interest rates to be able to refinance the debt, right? Makes the most sense to me, and I think that you're going to get it. Yeah, and thank you again for being part of the mastermind. We have almost 2,000 people there in the mastermind. So if that's something that sounds cool to you, if you'd like to be a part of a community that has the same conviction, aligned interests, and wants to be, part of a really good group on the other side of price appreciation to be able to do deals and travel and enjoy life together, you can check it out. It's at right over here, beyondbroke.com, and you can get a free month there in the group. Try it out. Super low barrier to entry. We try to make it super affordable. It's $25 for the social membership, $100 a month for the Carbon One membership. And again, that's right here. It's Beyond Broke 1 MO, all capitalized. Get you a free month there in Carbon One or social. We have more in real life events than any other mastermind group that you're going to be a part of. I can guarantee it. We have another one in Vegas here coming up at the end of this month. If you're in the mastermind, you'll know where it's at. I won't say it here publicly. Currently have 125 people registered for that event. I think that we're going to sell it out. It's no cost to members, but we will have, a capacity of about 250 people for the venue that we have there in Vegas. So if that's something you'd be interested in, if you're going to XRP Vegas anyway, we would love to have you. It is the Wednesday before XRP Vegas. So maybe you're going to be there for Bitcoin 2025 and you'd like to join us that Wednesday evening as well. We would love to have you. So all you have to do is go to beyondbroke.com. And then you can put in the code again, Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, get you a free month there in the group. A lot of other benefits there. We have, an insurance program for those that are part of the group, health insurance. So if you're older or you're an entrepreneur or you need health insurance outside of your job, we can do that. We also run private deals there in the group that are exclusive on fintech companies that you know and love. And we are allowed to involve up to 35 non-accredited investors on those deals because of the qualifications that we meet. We have a pre-existing business relationship with all the people there in the group, and we provide the financial education and business resources for those people to qualify as sophisticated investors in the eyes of the SEC, and therefore they understand the risks associated with these private investments and can participate in these deals. I can't talk about any of them explicitly here because we cannot advertise them. That's one of the literal regulations that we have to abide by. But if you are of interest in some of the fintech companies in this space, go check it out. We got Neil. He says, hey, Jake, should I open an LLC now or after price appreciation? Are there maintenance fees to keep that open while not in use? It's a great question. So there are annual fees associated with maintaining an LLC. You can have a non or a disregarded entity for at least 2 years before it produces income. And in doing so, you would just pay the state fees and the regulation fees and the registered agent, and we can help you all with that. We do all that for you, or we provide you the resources to do it yourself. If you work with us to set up the LLC, most of the time it starts to make sense to set up an LLC after your assets are north of $50,000 to $80,000 invested in crypto. If you're less than that, it's probably not a good cost of benefit. You should probably just keep buying more of the digital assets, right? We're here to help people, just so you guys know this. We do offer these products and services, and this is a business, and we do want to provide value, but not to people that don't need it, right? There's some people out there that shill stuff to anybody and everybody, even if they don't need it. I've never been a used car salesman, or I value relationships with people, and so does everybody else on my team. So we want to make sure that you're making the best decisions for yourself now and for later. And that's how we're going to work with you on the other side of price appreciation too. We want to make sure that the client's interest stays at the heart of the conversation. And we sit on the other side of all the professionals that we work with to make sure that if they're selling you insurance or an estate plan or, even the wealth advisory, that you're not getting sold something that you really don't need. We want to make sure that we're using the best tool, because that's what all these things are. They're tools for you and your situation, your family, and your legacy. So anyway, I don't know where you're at as far as how much you've accumulated. It may or may not be a good time for you to go ahead and purchase one. If you do set it up beforehand, you can season a bank account. If you're going to take profits, you can set up things so it's much easier, much less stress on the other side of price appreciation. If you do want to move quickly to get your assets into a trust, you'll be able to do so. And you'll be able to squeeze the value of your assets to get more of them out of your taxable estate into the trust. You'll be able to set up life insurance policies and fund those life insurance policies very quickly on the other side of price appreciation so that you get more of the upside and less taxes as the assets grow there. Be able to set up the infinite banking I talked about earlier. You'll be able to mitigate taxes if you do take profits inside the LLC instead of having to transfer the assets in. Just a lot of benefits being proactive and getting this set up now. And so that's why we've set up over 800 companies for people to be able to manage their digital assets effectively. And there's a lot of benefits for transacting out of Wyoming, like Arch Lending, which is one of our partners. If you're in the Mastermind, we have the capability to get you with them. And if you have a Wyoming LLC, there's no minimum. They will allow you to borrow against whatever amount of XRP you have. Versus if you didn't have a Wyoming LLC, it's going to be, at least $500,000 before you can borrow against it. So anyway, just a lot of benefits there for operating out of Wyoming, for the regulatory compliance, the anonymity, and the no state taxes there in Wyoming. And that's why we set those up as a single member LLC and walk you through everything you need: EIN, articles of organization, registered agent, how to set up a bank account, step-by-step process for moving your assets in there, virtual office, certificate of good standing. And if the BOIR comes back, we'll do that as well. So all that, everything you need, $2,000 if you use the code 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC, gets you everything I just talked about for $2,000, and it's right there at digitalfamilyoffice.io in the services section. Hey Jake, if I have over 1,000 shares of XRP and other coins as well, and things boom, what would be my focus on setting up for generational wealth? You're gonna have to wait a while. Just transparently, like I know people want to tell you that 1,000 XRP is going to make you super rich. You're going to have to wait at least another 3 to 5 years to have enough value there to set up any type of generational wealth. You need over $20 million to start setting up a family office. I know that's not what you want to hear. I'd love to sell you the dream, and there is a dream there if you're willing to hold long enough and continue to work your job and live below your means. But if you're looking to, leave your job and retire and step away with 1,000 XRP, that's not going to happen for a while. MDF says, I held XRP several years. I will have long-term capital gains if I cash out. Moving assets to an LLC does long-term capital gains still apply? Yes. You would, again, not change your basis or time frame held as long as you set it up as a single member LLC, and that's how you make the contribution. So again, give you that whole step-by-step process if you work with us to make sure that you're mitigating those potential tax implications if you set it up as a partnership. So we work with people all the time that want to do that, and we're like, this is a consideration that you didn't think about. So yeah, thank you for asking, and you would absolutely get to maintain those long-term capital gains. And hopefully Trump just gets rid of all that, for American-based cryptos, but we'll see if that shakes out or not. We got Hasmania USA. He says, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. I always forget to tell people, man. Thank you for reminding people, and I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, if you do find value here and you have like this, please like, subscribe, share with other people. It does help the algorithm and get it out to more people, and it is much appreciated. Matthew, he says, Jake, you're awesome. Thank you for the kind words, man. I like hanging out here, and you guys ask real good questions, so it's enjoyable for me too. Lots of YouTubers are endorsing Caleb Brown because I'm under the threshold to work with you. Is that a trusted company? Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier. We do have a partnership with them. Like I said, they're good. They do not provide the same level of institutional custody that we do at Anchorage. You can work with them as retail. Anchorage does not work with retail clients. That's why all of our clients set up a corporation to manage their digital assets, and we are the advisor on that. There's just, some other constraints, and the security at Anchorage is significantly greater than what it is there at Caleb Brown. They're going to commingle your assets. They're not insured. They're not unsegregated FBO accounts set up specifically in your name. They're going to be, set in an omnibus account with a tag that's associated with you on their accounting and their ledger. Like I said, I like Caleb Brown. I think people significantly underestimate how much better our services are than what they provide. However, to your point, if you don't meet, the requirements yet to work with us, Caleb & Brown is a fantastic, custodian and somebody to work with in the short term. We've got XRP King Duck. Interesting name. They say, what is RippleNet Infinity and why is it never mentioned by anyone in the XRP community? Because I don't know what it is. If it's a product, if it's RippleNet Infinity, nothing I'm aware of. However, if I were to speculate on what it is, it could be an implicit or explicit subnet to the XRPL, which is something that Matt Hamilton talked about with me. And he told me that that's what was required in order to be able to scale far beyond 1500 TPS, which is what currently available on the network today. And that would be required if they were going to partner and work with MasterCard, Visa, and other payment transmitters. So if that's something that Ripple's created, and I think the developers there, because Matt Hamilton came from there, would be able to do, then maybe that's what it is. I was familiar with a product called Cobalt, which he is, adamant that has been removed. It's no longer a thing. So maybe RippleNet Infinity is what's replacing that, and it is what will allow the XRPL to scale to the level of transactions per second that would be required to work with some of these partners that we know are working with Ripple, because both MasterCard and Visa have spoken at Swell. So that's my guess at what it is. I don't know. I'm completely speculating here. But if you had a gun against my head and said, guess what it is, that's what I'd give you. We've got Lil PP. What's up? They say, Jake, I don't meet the threshold. Advice on creating a will in the meantime for my wife in case I die. She has no clue about this stuff. And if I die before action, she'd be in a bad spot. So I had a crypto buddy. Okay. I had 3 different locations for where my keys were for all my wallets. In case the house burnt down or something happened, or one got lost, and I had different people that knew where things were that I trusted. So I would have a crypto buddy that you implicitly trust to help you out, and list them in your will and say, hey, call this person, they will help you. And sometimes there's reciprocity on that too. So, maybe your crypto buddy has a wife and children also that also don't know anything about digital assets. Probably they would want to do the same thing for you. So, hopefully in the near future, you meet the threshold and we're able to work with you in that capacity, and we're able to set things up where she's a signer and your kids are beneficiaries, and you don't have to worry about any of that. But in the meantime, that would be my suggestion, is just have somebody that you trust, and list them in the will as the reference or the contact for this stuff, so that they can make sure that your loved ones are taken care of if God forbid something happens to you. Living Legacy's posted this up here, so I just thought I'd drop it again. If you do want to join the mastermind and learn all about this and much more, and then again attend the event in Vegas, you can use the code there, Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. And you can just join the group and come to the event and then cancel if you want to. There's no commitment. It's month to month. We have almost 2,000 people there in the group and we've been around for, almost 2.5 years, which is wild. This person says, hello, Jake. Thanks for all that you do. Thank you for being here. Everybody's asking me about this ZBEC network. They have payroll. That's a cool use case. I'm not saying that they're not going to get traction and that there's not going to be some price appreciation on the token. But as many people are talking about it, I'd probably be selling mine right now if I owned any. I don't know what the price is. You know what? We'll look it up. We're going to go ahead and look it up right now while we're talking about ZB CN token. 283 on the market cap. People are selling it. Because it just hit another high. See, people bought it down here at 0.00078 cents, and then they started shilling it on their channels, and it ran up to 0.002. That's what's going on, people. People manipulate price. They find a token that's compelling, and and then they make money on it and they dump on you. And I'm not saying, specific people are doing that, but that is something influencers do. I don't do that. We have real businesses. Like, there's been one token I've ever talked about besides XRP on here. And obviously we haven't manipulated the price of XRP because we can't, because it's got to be institutional inflows, right? The only other token I've ever mentioned on here, and I bought like $1,600 of it. Okay. I bought $1,600 at like 2 cents, was Hash. And I bought it on Figure Markets. It is Provenance token for their network. I think it could be really good. Total insurance market cap globally is $8.21 trillion. They transact somewhere between $3 and $5 billion a day in claims and premiums. They've tokenized $225 million worth of insurance policies on that chain, which is 0.0027% of the total market cap for insurance. So extremely nascent. There's a foothold there. They have some traction. I think that it could be, significant upside. I make investments over 4 years. It's a long time horizon when I make an investment. So I'm not trying to run that up or make money tomorrow. I think I'm waiting for the actual utility on the token. So if that's something that interests you or you think is cool, go buy you some, not financial advice. It's what I don't, there's even like an affiliate link for the Figure Markets deal that they're trying to get me to shill. And I feel bad about doing that. Like, anyway, I'm just telling you, there's been a lot of people that have asked me about this ZBEC network and the token. To see the price action and what's happened now and the sell-off, it's concerning to me. I think there's some manipulation going on there. And here's the other thing. I own an SEC registered RIA. I can't be doing that type of stuff. Like there's zero tolerance. Like we would get put out of business if I was on here doing that type of stuff. So, there's additional reasons that I don't, but I'm just saying, like, think through that stuff. Don't just listen to everything you hear on the internet and think it's true, including myself. Go do your own research. Don't just listen to me. We got Nick. What's up, man? He says, Nick tuning in from Tasty Bottom, Australia. G'day, mate. It's May 8th. A mate beer down here. So shouting out a beer from you. Thanks for all your work. It's hard to get your service. We have the service there in Australia. We work with multiple Australians. So if you have a family trust set up, or you're an entity in BVI or somewhere else, or Singapore, we're happy to work with you and put your assets to work. We have multiple Australians that are in the funds with us and generating returns on their XRP held in institutional custody. So I think that's a kind of a misnomer. Like people think, because I'm international, I can't work with Jake. Absolutely can. We work, 25% of our client base is international. So if you want to go to digitalwealthpartners.net, would love to work with you in that capacity. But the assets do need to be north of, $500,000 and do need to be held in the entity in order to work with us. Todd, appreciate you for the super chat. I don't see a question here, but shout out to you and appreciate you being here this evening. We got another 15 minutes here. And we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got Sean Sides. He says, if someone got into XRP this year and had sub $10,000 bag, would that be able to work with you once XRP goes to $2,000 to $3,000? Asking for a friend. There you go, Sean. I like it. Don't tell people how much you got. Appreciate you being available. Yeah, absolutely. And we're here for that, right? And the person that mentioned earlier, like 1,000 XRP, like you're going to need a $10,000 XRP to have $10 million, which is going to happen. It's going to happen, but you're still 2, 3, 5 years away from that being a reality. So if you're willing to hold on and have faith and be responsible when the price appreciates, and it's kind of the same thing with that 10,000 bag, right? Even at a $2,000 XRP, I mean, you're looking at $20 million. Is that right? Is that the math there? No, it'd be a little more than that. Look, 200,000 or 200 million. That'd be more than enough. Yeah. We start working with people for the family office side at 20 million. Setting up their family charter and compass and making sure that they have governance and ethics documents set up for their children and their family so that they have a North Star and they know what that wealth is going to be used for. A a lot of philanthropic focus a lot of the time. Once you have more than you need, you can start really helping other people. And that's really been the common theme across most of the people that I've seen in this community. It's not, they're not gluttonous. They don't have an ego. They want some nice things for themselves and their family, and they want to take care of their loved ones and maybe their community. But beyond that, they're really giving. They have something on their heart that they want to set up to help other people with. I don't know if you guys have been around long enough for this or not, but there's used to be a channel on YouTube that was it's XRP Productions. I don't know if it's still listed or not, but he had a video of an old man that came to town, and they had these like med bed centers. I don't know if that'll be a thing or not, but if it is, right, like he spends a couple $1 billion worth of his XRP to set up these medical centers to give it for free for people all over the world. I think you're going to have a lot of people like that. I think you're going to have a lot of good-hearted people that come into a lot of money that are good stewards, and they give and help a lot of people with the wealth. So, yeah, if you got 10,000 and you hold on to it, I mean, at $100,000 XRP, you're doing really well. Imagine if you had 10,000 Bitcoin. You know what I mean? At $100,000 a piece. So the answer is yes. We would love to work with you, but it is going to be a little bit before you would qualify for the majority of the services that we offer. Todd Lang, thank you for the super chat, brother. We got Amani. What's up? He says, Jake, always fun listening to you. Is your meeting with Hugo for Flare regarding XRP future of XRP and your show, or is it private? Thoughts on Kendra Hill? Year by year, her article is checking the boxes. Yeah, we can talk about Kendra. Yeah, so Hugo will be on the podcast. We'll go back and forth. We'll talk about Flare. We'll talk about Spark. We'll talk about Songbird. We'll talk about how the network is structured and the ways that you can generate returns on your XRP and other digital assets, including Doge and Bitcoin and Algorand and the other F assets, excuse me, that you can mint on Flare. So excited to have him on. And I think that'll be a good collaboration. I think a lot of people, want to know more about that. And it's definitely something that we want to integrate in our services and practice for how we help people generate returns on their XRP. And then thoughts on Kendra Hill. So there's going to be a lot of new people here that have no idea who Kendra Hill is. Kendra Hill created a Steemit post, multiple posts. Steemit is kind of like a Reddit. It's kind of a, obscure social media site back in 2015. And she stated that her grandfather was part of the banking system and that he had bought her $10,000 worth of XRP for her 16th birthday, which had been a couple years previous. So 2012, 2013, back when it was really cheap, like 3/100ths of a penny type stuff. And he told her, look, like, you're not selling this. We're holding on to it. And you're going to keep it. So she's got like 3 million XRP or something. And so she did, and she wanted to sell it, right? Like, she's 16 years old. She wants a car. She wants other stuff. But he gave her a binder of all of the like intel that he had about what this was going to be and how it was going to change the world and some of the patterns and things that were supposed to happen in order for that to happen. And so she put out some interesting posts in 2015 that have all been removed at this point. You can go find screenshots of them today if you really look hard. But she talked about the ETFs going live for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, or Bitcoin and XRP. Again, remember, this is 2015, long before futures markets were even live for Bitcoin in 2017. And she talked about Codius and XRP settling the derivatives market using that platform, which is something that Ripple was working on when Brad Garlinghouse started working there and took over as CEO. And they, he pivoted away from that or shelved it. We'll see. If you go to Codius.io, it says expect dragons and that it's in beta. We'll see how soon they actually end up rolling that out. I think 26, 27 is when that'll probably be used. Could be sooner, But anyway, there was a lot of interesting things that she said. Kind of got dark there toward the end. And I think this could have probably gone a different way had other powers that be been in charge or taken control of some of these digital assets and these networks, and centralized them, and didn't allow them to become as decentralized as they have been. She talked about XLM being like one world currency type stuff. Not so great for like the end of days and like, all the stuff that's in the Bible type stuff. I don't know. Interesting regardless, right? Take it all with a grain of salt. I don't believe everything in totality. Same thing here. When you're listening to me, like I said, do your own research, look at other stuff. I'm just a data point for you. Might be a compelling one, but I am just a data point in all this. So, but yeah, if you guys haven't ever heard of Kendra Hill, I would highly recommend going to look that up and look for her Steemit posts. STEEMIT. Nicole, she says, hey Jake, the objection I hear, there is no way XRP will work if it's not a set price. Yeah, that's not true. Could this be because people are assuming XRP will be as volatile as a typical crypto? I think so. And so here's the way that I would combat that or have that conversation. I would ask them how much money it takes to move the NASDAQ 1%. And what the market cap of the NASDAQ is, right? So you look at we'll just look it up here. Give it a go. We got market cap of NASDAQ. $45.11 billion is the market cap. Is that right? Doesn't seem right. Maybe it is. Yeah, I guess that's total market cap, because the total market cap for the stock market is 600 trillion. So, I mean, that's an index. It's 45 billion. Imagine XRP's market cap being significantly higher than it is today. And to be able to move price, if the market cap of XRP is in the quadrillions, like I think it will be, imagine how much money it would be required to inflow or outflow from XRP to move it 1% either direction. It'd be $100 billion to move it 1% one direction. And so it will be much more stable than it is today at a significantly higher valuation. If it was over 4 digits, again, it would take $100 billion or more to move it 1% either direction. So it would be extremely stable. And the higher the price it is, the more stable it gets. So at a $10,000 XRP, in a, quintillion, sextillion, I don't know what it'd be, dollar market cap, the amount of volume and money that would be required in order to cause the volatility of the asset would be astronomical, almost infeasible. So I think that's why when they underwrite it later on, it'll be considered a tier 1 asset, because it'll be moving all the back end value globally, and that sustained volume over the network will hold the price at a significantly higher market cap. And to have new inflows or removal of something on that, it's very unlikely, right? Like all of these systems transact on a daily basis and have to for a global economy to function. And so that's the deal. Like at a significantly higher value, XRP's price is extremely stable. And so it's not fixed. It needs to be elastic. It needs to be able to move and expand based on new markets coming online, right? Like if they pegged it to gold, it would be elastic. It would not be elastic. It would be fixed. It wouldn't be dynamic. And so if they wanted to add a new market and they needed more liquidity in the asset, they would have to raise the price of gold. Like that seems obscure. It doesn't function correctly. You want it to be elastic and dynamic to be able to do that, but at a higher valuation, it's going to be extremely stable. So hopefully, that gives you a better context as to why it'll operate in that capacity and in that manner. And hopefully when you're having those conversations with other people, they can better understand why it would function in that way as well. Oh man, you guys are good with questions. Hang out here for another 10 minutes or so. We got Todd said, confused. You need 50,000 XRP or $500,000. Nope, we need 100,000 XRP currently, or $500,000 to qualify for the fund known for DWP's custody. But if XRP goes to $100, if you had less than 50,000 but more than 500K, you would then qualify. Yeah. So that dollar amount would stay fixed the amount of XRP will be significantly less as the asset appreciates. You're absolutely correct. We've got conservative asset class. They say, howdy, Jake. How are you, sir? When you transfer crypto from an individual wallet to a business wallet with the same identity, why does that trigger a taxable event? DAG might be the biggest asset management institution on the planet in the future. I think you're right. That's what I'm hoping for. That's how we've poised or set ourselves up. When you transfer crypto from an individual wallet to a business wallet with the same identity, that does not. Why would that trigger tax implications? You're not, again, so you can transfer wallets. We don't recommend that. We normally just contribute the wallet the assets are held on and create the corporation with that as the collateral, as the capital contribution to start the business. So your wallet address that you're in your personal name just becomes the business wallet address. Pretty simple. But moving, you could still buy a ledger with your business and then send your crypto from your personal wallet to the business wallet if you wanted to go through all that. And as long as it's a single member LLC, there would be no tax implications. So again, like all of this stuff is listed out specifically in the step-by-step process that we provide people when they work with us. So if that's something you're interested in, we'd love to work with you in that capacity. And just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and you can use the code 50OFF 50OFF DAGLLC, and that gets you everything all in. You know exactly what you're doing. And we set up 800 of these for clients just like you for $2,000. So, and if you went to an attorney, one, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to tell you some stupid stuff. I've seen some very stupid stuff from attorneys that don't know how to transact in crypto or what this asset class is. And they're going to charge you more than we charge. They're going to charge you the $4,000, which is our normal price on the website. But we, provide people that listen to the lives and people in the mastermind and other people that are paying attention a better opportunity, just like you guys. Everybody over here on TikTok always wants to know price prediction. I don't know if that's because of like short-term attention span or like that's just what's cultivated over here on this platform by the majority of people that come on here and talk about stuff. I like in-depth questions. So if you guys can give me more context around like what would cause price to do this, if this happened, probably be being particular. Gabe says how the price will increase if it's manipulated by dark pools. Eventually, the supply in the dark pools will run out, and they will have to go to the exchanges and the OTC, but mainly the exchanges in order to start purchasing, because that's the only supply that'll be left, Gabriel. And that's why it would increase substantially. And you'd see the chart gap up when that happens. I actually made a video on that if you want to go check it out on the YouTube channel. Corey, thank you for the super chat, brother. Let's see here. We got Rot Corp. Interesting. Mr. Jake, happy Veteran VE Day? VE Day? Mowed yards as a kid for a World War II vet on Jackal Island who was in 607 PIR 101 Airborne. He knew a few original band of brothers. Very cool, man. Not everybody's going to know about that, but that's awesome. I'm sure he had a lot of very interesting stories for you. Comic Book Countdown says, appreciate the information provided in these sessions. I'm thinking of converting my ETH to Quant. Do you think converting is a good move? I don't know what the tax implications are going to be for you. Still not sold on Quant. I really don't understand the value proposition there. Like, it pays fees on the network in order to participate in Overledger, but Axelar solves a lot of the stuff that Quant was trying to solve with Overledger, and the asset itself doesn't settle the transactions on the network. So it's not like there's going to be volume sustaining, price for settlement of Quant or using Quant. It's literally just you pay to use Overledger with Quant. And it has 18 decimal places, and there's a lot of speculation around that. There are people that are smarter than me that think it's cool and that it's going to go to a high value. So there could absolutely be something I'm missing there. I made a bunch of money on Quant. I got Quant at $7 before I consolidated my portfolio in 22. So like there is upside there. I don't know if it's already foregone and it will just maintain this price. I don't know what the price appreciation of quant's going to be. I think, I can't give you financial advice. I'll tell you what I would do. If I owned ETH, I would be looking for other opportunities. I think that the upside in ETH is substantially less than other opportunities in the market. Don't know that quant's the thing, though, that I would be looking at personally. We got John. He says, "Hey, Jake, sorry about the last chat, buddy. I don't know what happened, but I appreciate you. Made you look like you had Tourette's." Must have asked me something where I didn't like it. Do you have any affiliation in Australia after price appreciation? How long before banks will be looking to have custody for XRP? At least 12 to 18 months. Yeah, we talked to all of them. I talked to Fidelity, HSBC. They ain't got it. They don't care about it. There's not enough liquidity in it. They might scramble and start doing it, but it's not on their roadmap. I can tell you that. They don't care, because we want to partner with people. And we've figured out some really creative ways to be able to reflect the value of XRP and other people's infrastructure without them having to custody it, because they don't have the capability to do it. And because of that, I think they may just go, okay, well, we'll just work with these guys or other people like them to be able to reflect the value over here. And we don't have to spend all this money to custody these assets, and we still get the benefit. You know what I mean? So we can absolutely, again, work with people in Australia right now. If you have a family trust set up, if you have an LLC or a trust in another jurisdiction set up, and that's what's maintaining and managing your assets, would love to work with you and put your assets to work in the opportunities that we have. Again, predicated that they are north of the value that we're looking to work with. But Caleb and Brown is there in Australia. So if you're looking, to hold it someplace safer, I still think a cold wallet's safer than Caleb and Brown, because it's commingled. It's not insured. There's no segregation of accounts. Like, there's a lot of stuff that it's the same as a brokerage or another exchange, just like Uphold. So if you think Uphold's safe, which goes down all the time, at least you're going to have a broker there that you can call, right? Like, that's the benefit, but you're also paying a pretty significant premium on transactions. Shadespot, did you hear about the stablecoin bill not getting enough votes to be passed? Concerned? Nope. I know that they've reformed it a couple times, but it's supposed to go up for vote for tomorrow, so we'll see. Living Legacy. So I've said this a couple times, but he's typed it out here. So if people, want to write it down and use it, you can set up the LLC again. You go to digitalfamilyoffice.io in the services section and use the code 50OFF 50OFFDAG LLC. Gets you everything all in for the corporation here in the US. And I'll say this, we just put out a video not too long ago. If you're international, it may not be a good idea to set up an LLC here in the US. So don't just rush off and do that. I would have a conversation with an estate planner or tax attorney in your jurisdiction to make sure that that's appropriate. If you plan to move here, absolutely, probably fine. But if you're going to remain in your jurisdiction or live abroad, don't tie yourself to the US with a corporation. Happy Pisces 320. Excuse me. Couple more super chats, then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We have Cole. He says, how did I move assets from a 24 cold wallet to Arculus with less? Arculus may not have a 24 seed phrase cold like the seed phrase. Some of them are less. Some of them are 16. Some of them are 24. Some's 25. Just depends. That's just what it is. Then we got Cole. He says, thoughts on Trump's big, not trade related announcement that's going to be in a few days, crypto related? I sure hope so. Would be great if it was. I think the market could use it. There'll be something good. Trump always has something good. Or bad, more tariffs. We'll see. Remember what we need in total assets to work with you and to start an LLC. Remind me. Yeah, so great questions. So to set up an LLC, north of $50,000 to $80,000 in current value of your digital assets makes a lot of sense at that point as like just a cost to benefit for going ahead and establishing an LLC previous to price appreciation. If you have north of $500,000 assets, $500,000 in assets. So that's across all of your portfolio. Doesn't have to exclusively be XRP. We can work with you. We can custody XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, Avalanche, XLM. Don't have HBAR and XDC yet. Working on those. Cardano also working on that. And then or $500,000 in total value of your portfolio, or at least 100,000 XRP. So that would be $220-ish thousand today. Invest in digital assets. And if you want to make an investment of $250,000 or more, we can absolutely take you on as a client. So if you want to send us cash and purchase XRP or XLM or some of those other assets for 12 basis points is actually where we're at now on the transactions, which is wild. Very low. It's way lower than anybody else. I'm just going to say it. Far cheaper to trade with us than anybody else. $250,000 or more, we can absolutely bring you in and start working with you. Austin Trent says, tell me XRP is going to 1K this year again, please. You have to have external events happen, Austin. We've said this lots of times. I'm highly confident that they will here this year. But we do need the reverse carry trade. We need Tether. We need stablecoin. We need Bitcoin to tank. We need exchanges to go illiquid. We need oil to spike. A lot of things that I went over at the beginning of this broadcast and this live stream to play out in order for that to actually happen. We need a perfect storm for that to transpire. If that doesn't happen, it's not going to happen off of retail. It's only going to be institutions and ETFs. Shadespot, thank you, brother. He says, we love you. Love you too, man. Thanks for being here. And that's why we're here each week. But could your business put in an XRP echo chamber overlooking risks? Bitcoin maxis have a strong conviction due to their echo chamber thoughts. For sure. And so, like, as an example, we had XDC, we had Ken at our event, who is their US leader here. We got DAG. I talked to Ben Jorgensen earlier today. I talked to all of these people. We talked to Avalanche. We talked to Axelar. We talked to Ondo. We talked to Hyperledger, Chainlink. So here's the deal. I know all these people. We have conversations with them all. I know what their technologies do, and I still only own XRP. If that tells you anything. Again, not financial advice. I'm making my own decisions. I'm just disclosing my positions to you guys. But I talk with their teams. I see what they're building. I see what's on their roadmap. We talk about integrations. Like, I get it. And I'm still siloed in XRP. I want to make sure that I'm not making a mistake. All the time, I am exposing myself to new people, new projects, conversations outside this ecosystem, because I am fearful that I end up in an echo chamber and make poor choices because of it. So absolutely, people come on here and you can definitely set up your feed where you end up in an echo chamber. I enjoy people that bring other thoughts that are respectful to the conversation and are willing to go back and forth and debate something. Because sometimes I learn something that I didn't know. But most of the time, in order for me to form an opinion on something, I have to be able to argue the other side of it. Like, I could tell you why Hedera is better than XRP. I could tell you why HBAR, or not HBAR, but XLM is better than XRP. I could tell you why Bitcoin is better than XRP. But it's not, because I can argue both sides. Probably, I won't say probably better than maxis can, but there's been multiple maxis that I've had conversations with for other tokens that I know more about the project and the token and team than they do. So anyway, absolutely, to your question, you can definitely end up in an echo chamber, and it could be detrimental. And I continuously expose myself to people outside this ecosystem and have conversations on a daily basis to make sure that that's not the case for me. And I still have the conviction that I have in XRP. So, I'm going to grab a couple more super chats, and we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We've got, well, here we go. Maybe the last one. We got Dennis. What's up, man? He says Judge Torres rescinded injunction by June 16th, and a week later, all the XRP ETFs are approved. BlackRock insider claims something huge coming with XRP. Logical. I don't think people understand how related and integrated BlackRock and Ripple are. Like, it's not public information, but it is. Careful with what I say. Yes. would be what I would say. Highly likely. Let's see. Nick, I'll try this again with spell check. My XRP assets are held in New Zealand, LLC. Would I be able to participate in DWP LLC? Yes, absolutely. As long as you meet the accredited requirement here in the US. So you've made at least, if you're married, $300,000 or the equivalent there in your jurisdiction for the past 2 years on your tax return. If you're single, $200,000, or you have at least $1 million of net worth outside of the equity in your home. If you have either one of those qualifications and you have your entity set up, we would love to work with you to generate. And you said yield here. Can't say yield. They're not like predetermined or just indicates lower risk, which what we have is super low risk, but yield is like guaranteed. We don't have guaranteed returns on anything that we provide, but we do have returns. Last month, they generated like 75 basis points on both of them, both the income and the growth fund were 75 basis points for our clients. We got a $55 million worth of XRP being put to work today in the funds generating returns for our clients. So yeah, we would love to work with you in that capacity if you meet the accredited requirement, but we can still absolutely work with you on the custody side as long as you have the assets in the amounts that we can work with as well. Donald, what's up, man? He says, how are you sure, or even better, where can I learn how the process of drops move? How are you sure, or even better, where can I learn how the process of drop moves? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question here, and I really do appreciate the super chat. I wouldn't even begin to I would try to suss this out, but I have no clue what you're even asking. If you want to ask it a little bit further down, I'll try to find it, and we'll make sure that we circle up on it and get it answered. Smash that like button. Here he is. He says, that is how the price of XRP moves. Oh, how XRP moves. Okay, so drops would be the sats equivalent to Bitcoin. It's all supply and demand. It's literally that simple. It's just standard economics. So the volume that is, being purchased on the exchanges currently is what's holding the price where it's at and driving the sustained volume for purchase over the period of time, holding it at $2. When we have more volume or more purchase demand moving on the exchanges, we'll see a higher price XRP. On the other side of a higher price XRP, there will come a point where it's a high enough price so it'll start settling transactions for these other use cases once there's enough liquidity in it to be able to do so. And that'll be sustained volume that'll hold the price again stable at a higher value. I think a lot of people are anticipating XRP dumping back down. I don't think that's going to happen in the slightest this time. There might be some short pullback, but I think once it gets to $50, $100, $1,000, $2,000, it's very stable. Like I talked about before, the amount of inflows and or outflows that would have to happen to move the price are astronomical. And with sustained volume over the network and settlement, the price is going to be very stable at those high values. So it'll move very different than it does today. Right now, market dynamics are dictated by retail and speculation and some institutional purchasing for the ETFs. But over the long term, it'll be primarily volume for transactions over large networks and settlement that maintain price stability for XRP. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for taking out time on your week in the evening to listen here. I will not message you. I'll just go ahead and put this up here. I don't message you. If you message me, would love to have a conversation. We will talk. I have a wonderful woman that helps me with my social media accounts, my wife, and she will respond to you in most circumstances under my account if you message us. I'm not going to be reaching out to you, though. So anybody that reaches out to you and tells you WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever else, scam, please report, do not engage. So with that, just again, if you want to go, set yourself up for success on custody, want to be able to generate returns, work with a manager or an advisor on your digital assets, you can go to digitalwealthpartners.net. In order to work with us, again, you're going to have to set yourself up in an LLC. So if you want to do that, you would go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG-LLC, get you 50% off, $2,000 all in for everything that you need for an LLC here in the US to manage digital assets. And last but not least, if you want to check out the Mastermind and attend the event in Las Vegas and participate in private deals we run there in the group, just go to beyondbroke.com and enter the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. Appreciate you guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you on the next one.